Hello, everyone. Ian Hamilton with Good Virtual Reality here, and thanks for giving us your time today. In case you're new, you can become a subscriber at goodvirtuality.com. Many episodes of this podcast head out over email first to paid subscribers before publishing everywhere. Thank you to my founding members, paid subscribers, sponsors, and the donations I've received supporting the production of this independent journalism directly. Today, I'm joined by Mark Drummond, and why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what you're talking about today and where you're tuning in from?
Sure. Well, in reverse order, I'm tuning in from Bend, Oregon, the high desert, to the east of the Cascades, so the dry side of Oregon. Uh, Most recently, before starting Pixi Platforms, I was at Apple and I worked on the Vision Pro for 7 years. And tracing back sort of random spots, I worked at NASA for probably 12 years. We used AI to drive rovers on Mars. And then before that, I did a PhD in what is, funnily enough, now called good old fashioned AI, PhD in that kind of AI at Edinburgh University in Scotland.
What are you talking about today? And then we'll go back to some of those things. I want to hear about
Well,
some details there.
I ended up at Apple because I was on the founding team for Siri. I had this fabulous title of Executive Director of Ventures and Licensing at SRI International. Way back in the day, SRI invented Windows and the mouse, licensed some of the technology to Xerox PARC. My job at SRI was to spin out companies. So I was on the team to spin out Siri, did the 10 slides of PowerPoint that we used to raise $8.5 million Series A. And I never actually worked for the company, but it was bought then by Apple. And the folks at Apple reached out to me and said, "This thing's not working as expected. Would you come and help us fix it?" So I did that. And it was a very tricky environment, lots of sharp elbows and lots of internecine rivalry in this Siri team. I think, by the way, Mike Rockwell, now in charge of Siri, has fixed a lot of that, which is great. But Mike was then running the Apple Vision Pro team for Tim Cook, and he brought me over to work on finding sources of surprise and delight for characters in augmented reality. So we created the character intelligence team and worked with a variety of Hollywood studios to do that. We worked with Disney and Marvel. We worked with Kevin Feige on the Marvel universe, and we worked with John Favreau on a variety of things. The one that shipped there was the Encounter Dinosaurs app. So we learned a few, I think, interesting things. And the character intelligence team working with these Hollywood studios, it's pretty easy to do AR, but most AR is just sort of an animated idle position overlay on the real world. And one of the things that we learned is that if IP, characters, backstories come to life in such a way that the characters pay attention, then things feel present. It feels present. So it needs to react to sounds as you think would be appropriate, react to movement, the introduction of objects, the disappearance of objects. As a person, if there's a cup on the table and then you look away and you look back and the cup is gone, that empty table is really interesting to you because there was a cup there. But from a traditional sort of machine learning perspective, it's just an empty table. Why are you excited? Well, I'm excited because there was a cup that is no longer there. So that style of paying attention brings these characters to life, makes them feel present. And the other thing we discovered that enables this is that on-device AI broadly speaking, a lot of it is machine learning, is central to correctly manifesting attention. So to see correctly, to listen, to detect motion, to detect objects. So really to bring characters to life in a meaningful way, they have to pay attention. The other thing we learned, and of course we're working on the Vision Pro, I have one right here. It's a fabulous device, great for certain kinds of things, but we built all our prototypes on iOS and iPad OS. And of course that works because technically Vision OS, the thing that drives the headset, it's just a fork of iPad OS. So it's very related. Um, we were able to give demos to all sorts of stakeholders in Hollywood on iPad and iPhone. And we realized it's a pretty great platform, handheld. People can look over your shoulder. You can walk around. Again, there's use cases for the AVP, but what we're focused on here at Pixi is not one of those. And the other thing that I learned, and I learned this honestly years before at DreamWorks Animation, where I was in charge of bringing characters to life in our own apps. A lot of these IP holders don't have the people required to bring their characters to life in AR. It's so expensive, it's so complicated, it takes so many skills that they really stick to their knitting and they do movies and maybe they license their characters into games and maybe do plastic figurines that are distributed in Happy Meals at McDonald's. But in general, they're blocked from distributing their characters in AR because it's too complicated, it's too expensive. So we learned those things in our time with the character intelligence team. If we shift gears a little bit, the other thing we sort of noticed is that people are always trying to reach out and say, hey, the poke obviously is a very jaundiced, simple form of that in the early days of Facebook. It's basically thinking of a friend when they're not present. And in psychology literature, you hear it called pebbling, creative gifting. There's this idea of tokens of affection. Well, this is a tale as old as time. Of course, we've had cards in the mail for hundreds of years. ID cards for decades, GIFs, animated images, and text. These are all pretty old school at this point. So we asked ourselves the question here at Pixie about how about customizing and sending your friend's favorite character, maybe Elsa from Frozen, maybe the donkey from Shrek, to deliver a personal message and interact with your friend in their world. So that pushed us into this very specific place where we're positioning the character as software. And we're using the term agentic media. We're obviously not the first to talk about agentic media. I think we're the first to ship something meaningful in this space. But for us, a Pixie is a complete package of sensors, brain for making decision, behaviors, and a message to deliver, and then the animations that go with that delivery. This is, in a way, a really natural next step in the evolution of media. You send text that people read, you send a photo that they look at, you can send an audio clip or file that they listen to, instead of video, they watch that. If you send a complete full fledged agent, it runs and they interact with that. So that's why we have an S in the name of the company, Pixie Platforms. There's really three. There's the authoring. We author completely on phone, iPhone today, Android will be coming. Then you share. Today, it's with iMessage, but other messages, transport's coming. And then you run that same thing on an iPhone. So we have the authoring, the distribution or sharing, and then the runtime. One of the key questions here is, can we do that in a way that is brand safe? And so we can guarantee that the way we use their characters and the way people can configure and send those characters in a Pixie is faithful to the underlying brand attributes. And then on the consumer side, the idea is that a consumer can customize a character, share it with their friends to satisfy their urge to reach out and connect. Let's go to the cat. I can edit the skin. So I like a black cat. I can edit what are the behaviors that it's going to engage in when it gets there. One is you can get it to tell dad jokes. And the game there, this appeals to little kids mostly, is you can't smile. If you smile, the cat says, even the lovely audience, I'm out of here. And it mirrors you while it's telling the jokes. Tic tac toe, the cat delivers a message, then plays tic tac toe and augmented reality, similarly for whack a mole. We start with USD, Universal Scene Description from Pixar. USD is great at representing rigs and animations and surfaces, et cetera, skins. We add to that neural networks for perception, neural networks for action, animation stuff, but we with basic USD. It's tracking me. It knows where I am. It's mirroring me. So we're using the front-facing camera to detect the person, their eyes, their mouth, all that kind of stuff. Even just on an iPhone, the occlusion is pretty good. We use an LLM in a distillation kind of way to respond to any of a few hundred different sounds that we can detect. The Pixie Garden, as we call it, is both the authoring system, which in some cases is embedded in iMessage. And in other cases here, it's just a standalone app at the iOS desktop levels.
Everything I'm seeing here should work in an Apple Vision Pro as well, right?
Technically, that's exactly right. We would probably need about a week to adjust all the software. But again, the use case that we're going for requires zero setup and zero teardown time. So I'm a huge fan of the AVP and I use it a few times a week. But I kind of gird my loins and I get ready. I have my cup of coffee and I put the headset on and I recalibrate it. And then I do the thing. And the thing itself better be an hour or two's worth of work because I'm taking time to get in there and then I get out. This is meant to be, I'm sure you've heard the term from VCs of the 5 minutes well wasted. Now I'm in to get a root canal and I'm sitting in the dentist's office and I pull out my two favorites were Angry Birds and Monument Valley. They're just so great. There's no setup time. There's no teardown time. Boom, I'm in there. I'm doing my thing and I'm out. This is kind of the 5 minutes well wasted model. We're doing spatialized audio.
I want to step back for a minute and talk about the Encounter Dinosaurs experience for a second and recap it. Not everyone has access to an AVP, and the experience in Encounter Dinosaurs, a big portal opens in your room. It's a horizontal portal, basically larger than any television screen you could ever have. And a series of dinosaurs come up to you in increasingly sort of invasive way over the couple of dinosaurs. But each of the dinosaurs clearly notices your presence. It makes eye contact with you. It sees your head movements. If you move your head around, you can kind of see them make eye contact with you. And that's imposing, right? That's eye contact that you make with a digital character is quite effective. One of my favorite things to do is there's a feature in there to turn on interaction points so that it's like an assist feature. And you can kind of tell you, do you want to be nice to the creature or do you want to be forceful to the creature? You can select which of the two you pick. And depending on how you interact with these dinosaurs, you could have a slightly different story by the end of it. If you play your cards right and interact with the dinosaurs in a nice way all the way through, you get a little family of mini dinosaurs that come out at the end instead of just the one dinosaur. Tell me about the creation of this experience because I'm seeing a through line here with what you just showed me in AR on a phone. How did this project come together and how long were you working on it?
All credit for the art and story is to John Favreau. I learned a lot in working with him. His original story there was big, fierce dinosaur, yells at you, you're scared. But then you realize it's just a mom protecting her babies. And then you go, oh, that's cute. So that was one of the original sort of stories. The parts we contributed, we worked with a very talented team in Culver City on all this. They were the main point of contact. There's really 2 points of interaction there. One is when the what was supposed to be a Carnotaurus, I'm not sure which one it was eventually, but the Carnotaurus is supposed to look at you and track you to make you feel studied and seen. And the way that works, and anyone in gaming knows about this, is called an IK lock. So it's an inverse kinematic chain with a locked end. So we model the dinosaur as a chain, starting with the eyes, and those can steer. And then there's the neck can steer. Then there's the shoulders, and then the thorax, and then all the way down. And we sort of anchored it at the waist because, to your point about the big window, you can't see much of the dinosaur there. And because we have the headset, we know where the headset is in XYZ. So we solve the equations down that kinematic chain. So when the person moves, it's damped. First the eyes move, then the head moves, then the neck moves, then the shoulders move to always keep the person tracked. And just to interrupt myself for a second, there's a guy that we worked with at Disney who gave me my favorite metaphor for surprise and delight. There's a ride there called Crush. I think they've since retired it. There's big screens that look like an aquarium, and Crush the turtle from Finding Nemo would swim around. And it was teleoperated by cast members looking through a bunch of cameras at the kids sitting there in the room. The kids reached out to the screen, and through the cameras, they could see, and they did the voice of the turtle in real time. They discovered very quickly they could not leave furniture or carpet in this room because the little kids got so excited that they peed themselves very repeatedly. And Disney called this the golden circle of delight. So, so we always aspired to a golden circle of delight in the dinosaur demo because like no one's ever had a Carnotaur staring right at them in the face. I don't think we ever achieved it, but we never actually measured that result.
So I remember going to the first demo at Apple's headquarters. I got invited to the
Mhm.
first reveal,
Oh, great.
and I believe they showed the dinosaurs there. I remember the portal open, but I remember it was like the last thing in the demo. If I recall correctly, they did a bunch of other things, walking me through personas and all that stuff. But they specifically gave me a warning not to walk through the physical wall that was there.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I'm like, I've
Yeah.
got plenty of experience with VR headsets. I told I'm not going to do that. But I can imagine that that might have be a concern with that particular experience of scaring a person so much by this dinosaur walking into the room that
They,
they fly
they
over the
could
couch
crash out.
backwards.
Exactly right. Yeah, there were people that had a lot of experience with scale. The team in Culver City thought really carefully about the size of that window because this Carnotaurus is huge and there's tricks to be played with its size, your size, and the viewing window. And the viewing window is also intended to not block out so much of your environment that you would crash into things. So there's a lot of psychology and perceptual sort of reasoning that went into that. Just to finish the story about interaction, the other piece of interaction that people really liked is if you stick out a hand, we use machine learning to recognize any kind of extended digit, something that the butterfly could land on. If you hold that out, a butterfly comes in and lands. And I've worked on it, but I still swear you can feel the butterfly on your finger. Your brain just sort of fills in that sense. Those things where dinosaur looks, tracks, and that's for a fixed little window of time. And if you miss the butterfly, it will just go away and it's not coming back. At Pixi, we realized those are the foundation for paying attention. And one of the interesting things that you could do with what is this? This is an iPhone 15 Pro. You cannot do this on the headset. So this is looking out at the world. It's got video. This one being a pro also has this little disc right here, which is the LiDAR sensor, right? So you can get depth from that. None of our current Pixies need depth, so they work on pro and non-pro phones, but we'll eventually introduce ones that do require that. But you can also run the camera here, looking at the user at the same time. If you move your head, the device knows where it is in three-dimensional space. As they say in Hollywood, the conceit here is a little bit different. This is a magic viewing glass. So I'll give you a super simple example. We built it in prototypes. It's not part of a shipping product. Imagine that there's a little gremlin on the table, a green gremlin walking around. Imagine the gremlin's experience of me. What is that? There's a large floating, say, silver rectangle in the air, and it's got my face leering in. But now I move away to the side. The gremlin is looking up. It just sees the big shiny rectangle. It can walk up to that, press its nose against it, and look for me. That's a very different kind of AR experience. With the phone, we're both looking through the same little magic portal, and the creatures that we see look back. It's actually a very different abstraction of what it means to do AR. It's not like one is categorically better or worse. Like if you're doing training in surgery or you're being taught how to repair an engine, you want your hands free, you want the resolution, you want the comfort of that. But the kind of experiences that we're talking about, the 5 minutes well wasted, this is a great device. So you're absolutely right to see that through line of characters paying attention. And here we can pay attention to facial movements and to device movements and to the environment. We have on device object detectors that we train up to recognize objects of interest in the environment. None of our first shipping Pixies have this in it, but we're really intrigued with the idea of telling a story in augmented reality with physical object unlocks. So a character shows up and says, I need a clock. Please find me a clock. Now you're participating in that story. Like I show my watch to the camera. It says, yeah, that's good enough. That's a clock. Great. Thanks. Now we can proceed. So we're working towards that kind of interactive storytelling. And to your point, Ian, it all does start with that Encounter Dinosaurs thing and the story that John Favreau wanted to tell. We had a variety of other experiences that we're working on, which I'm not allowed to talk about because they may ship someday. I don't know.
There's a company that I just had on the podcast called Astrobeam. They built an
Mm.
app called Stellar Cafe, and that has full voice interaction with the characters in there, interact with these robots over a couple days and fully immersive. And the dev behind Astrobeam, his name is Devin Reamer, and he built Job Simulator a decade ago for headsets. And he was basically pioneering with hand tracking or controller tracking a decade ago, and now he's pioneering with voice interaction. It seems to me what you've built is the opposite end of what they've built, with still some of the same underlying interaction models, right? You're
Right.
interacting with these Pixies directly on a mobile phone, anywhere, like you said, in and out really quickly. Am I right in understanding that you and this company, this app that I've just described, are trying to solve the same problem?
I don't think so. I think you're right that the underlying technology is very similar because there's not that many different things that you have to be able to do. You have to do animations, got to pay attention. You need good models of three-dimensional stuff. We have to lean hard into on-device machine learning to recognize objects, to understand sounds. Like we can do currently 218 different sounds, from a gunshot to breaking glass to dogs barking to cats meowing. Most times when you give a demo, and it's a noisy environment, it's a disaster. But when I'm at a cocktail party, it's great because there's usually someone that's laughing and there's some music playing in the background, and the characters always have something slightly obnoxious or ironic to say about the sounds they're hearing. So we have to do a lot of work to process on device, on a handset, all this inbound information and turn it into a model that our characters can react to. So anything that's in VR doesn't have to do that. And the other thing that's I think is pretty core difference is we're really all about this social gifting, this idea that I'm thinking of you. I want to reach out and say something to you. So our future is populated by events and notifications. It's my sister's birthday. Oh, crap. I forgot to get her anything or send her anything. I'm going to put 5 minutes into configuring something, a character that I know she likes, that's going to arrive and sing happy birthday, dear Jennifer, in the voice of that character. All of a sudden, I'm a hero, at least not a schmuck. And she feels special because she's, looked at, been remembered on her birthday. So our core is messaging, 5 minutes well wasted, letting people express themselves through this character IP. And that feels to me, I'm not super familiar with Astrobeam. I've heard of them, but it feels like our goals are quite different, even though at a technical level, there's going to be a lot of shared infrastructure.
That sounds right. It sounds like you're both trying to solve the same problem, just in completely different. And but it's fascinating here today. So, what are you launching this week specifically?
Basically, the ability to send inside iMessage, Pixi, swipe up. We have our rangy cat. We have our cute robot. You can do any of the stand up jokes where it ends when you smile, but this is a preliminary version, and tic tac toe and whack a mole. 3 lines of message with it. We're working with one of our investors who we hope to be able to talk about. They have characters in their library that people would want to customize and send. And so we're working with them on versions of that. And as soon as we get approval, we hope to release those characters into the system and then people can use them.
I'd be curious to animate my pets as well, turn them into
Right.
characters and send those messages as well. Do you think you'll build that bridge to headsets eventually, or do you think you'll stick on the phone for the foreseeable?
I think we live or die on the phone to begin with, and that life or death is first iPhone and iMessage. And then still on iPhone, we had other carriers, if you will, WhatsApp, Signal, Instagram, anywhere that you could publish a URL in a web like environment. We want that to be able to point to a Pixi. So that will be coming later this summer, maybe or early fall. Then Android is in our future. We'll do Android before we do the headset. Again, I think the headset's a great device, but from our perspective, there's not enough of them out there to make it a meaningful target. We're a small company. We've got limited resources. So we'll go after Android handsets, which is what, 4 billion? There's a couple of billion iPhones and iPads out there. So just from a market, penetration perspective, it makes most sense to go after handsets first. I won't say no to the headset because it always amuses me when people say, well, Apple's given up on the headset. The hell they are. Of course they're not. I mean, to Apple, it's a chance to reinvent the whole WIMP thing, right? Which was invented at SRI International back in the 60s, Windows icon mouse pointers. Just look on YouTube for the mother of all demos. And one dude gave that demo, which showed all this stuff from hypertext and voice electronically carried. He showed all that stuff a long time ago. And I think Apple's saying, well, maybe we can do better, maybe floating windows and gestures. So like that's not going to be retired. I have no inside knowledge. I've been gone for like 3 years, but I believe there's a deep-seated desire at Apple to keep pushing on that. But that idea of spatial, that's why I call it spatial computing, right? It's a spatial computer. And it might make sense for us down the road. I think our characters have to be longer lived. They'd have to be maybe engaged with you in some kind of task where they're coaching you through something, like maybe an embodied LLM that watches you build Legos and makes comment. Maybe there's some value to having something sat there with you on the desk, but it's not a target for us right away.
Yeah, really interesting. I've talked to a couple people doing pet characters in VR, and every one of them has encountered the roadblocks that you're talking about here. Just a mismatch. Saying you live or die on the phones. I can't wait to see whether you live. Because
Yeah,
it's a really
we
interesting
choose life.
idea yeah, good luck. They're going to be a free app.
It's free with all our own characters. It's absolutely free. We have to sort out with IP holders when the time comes how they want to distribute their IP. My recommendation would be make it free because if your characters are the sort of thing that consumers want to select, instantiate, and share with their friends, oh my goodness, your consumers are becoming your advertisers. Why would you charge them to do that? So I know at DreamWorks, we made a significant amount of money from McDonald's because we would package DreamWorks figurines in Happy Meals, right? The exact numbers are confidential, but why? Well, because kids like to take the toys out and they play with them. And then they go, "Oh, I really want to go to see How to Train Your Dragon again." And so the parents go, okay, we'll do that. So it creates this virtuous loop. We're not just producing toys, we're producing an entirely new short form kind of interactive experience that is brand safe and character authentic. I think that's going to put bums in movie theaters or get you to buy books or other sorts of things. So my preference at this point is for the IP holders to make it possible for people to use their characters and their IP for free. But they may have different opinions. We'll see. Try it out. Give us feedback. The moment we can get feedback from people who are using it, we would love to hear that. We've been doing listening labs. I'm a big fan of listening labs. I've become somewhat famous here in Bend for going to coffee shops, buying people coffee, and saying, "What do you think about this? What do you think about this?" And people now know that I'm not trying to sell them. I actually wanted to look at a phone. Uh, so I can't wait to get out of the listening lab in the coffee shop format and actually get feedback from people in real life. So people try it, give us feedback. We'd love to hear from you.
What's the name of the app, just for the record here? And where can people
It's
find more
the
information about it?
it's the Pixie Garden. If we go to the App Store and we search for Pixi Garden, you will see us there. It's in the App Store right now. Pixie Garden. Take a look, check it out. Please tell us what you think.
Awesome. Thank you for the time, Mark, and can't wait to see what feedback you get from this and where this project goes. Definitely see this through line. Interactive characters is a very difficult thing to pull off. All these constraints that you've picked to do this in a compelling, quick, in and out way. So I'm very curious to see how everyone responds.
Well, I appreciate that. Appreciate the feedback and thank you for the chance to chat.